And Israel's Supreme Court has begun hearing the first legal challenge to controversial judicial reforms. On Monday evening, thousands of Israelis demonstrated in Jerusalem against the legislation passed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's religious nationalist coalition. Opponents say the changes, which give Parliament more power over the judiciary, will weaken democracy. The hearing puts the country's senior justices in the unprecedented position of deciding whether to accept limits to their own powers. DW's Rebecca Ritters has this report from Jerusalem.
Rarely, if ever, has an issue so galvanised and so divided Israelis as this one. These were the scenes outside Israel's parliament as the first bill from the government's controversial judicial overhaul plan was passed in July.
It's a sad day to the Israeli democracy. The law will enable this government to pass any law that they would like, to appoint any person to a position, regardless of their skills or background. And we're going to fight back.
I don't know what to say. It's so corrupted, so criminals. The government is not for the benefit of the whole country, only for one party, and it doesn't look good for the future.
Israel doesn't have a constitution or a second chamber of parliament, making the Supreme Court the only formal check on the government. But the new law curbs the Supreme Court's powers to overturn government decisions based on reasonableness. Now the issue is coming to a head again as the Supreme Court prepares to make a ruling on its own fate. The outcome of that ruling could have far-reaching effects.
The country has never faced such a societal unrest, such divides within the general population. If the court would strike down the law, the reaction from the right-wing electorate and general public would be, I think, very, very strong, very angry, and we would see an even greater societal unrest than we've seen until now.
The government and its supporters remain undeterred. Thousands came out to this pro-reform protest in front of the court last week.
This has been dubbed the Liberty Demonstration. These people have come out to show their support for the judicial reforms and to press the government to continue with their plans. They say the Supreme Court has far too much power and all too often acts as a handbrake against the wishes of the democratically elected government.
For years, the right are suffering from the ton of power that the judges have over Israel. I think that the judges still need to have power, but in the reality that we have today, they have too much power over the government, and it's just not a democracy.
We came here to say that the democracy must stay. The court cannot change the democracy. Democracies belong to the Knesset, only to the Knesset. They want to rule the country, but we didn't elect them. They have never been elected by the people. People elected this government, and this government must be ruled.
In the meantime, the government has signalled it won't accept a ruling that nullifies the law. Such a confrontation could plunge the country into a constitutional crisis.
Well, DW correspondent Tanya Kramer is following this story for us and joins us from the Israeli Supreme Court in Jerusalem. Tanya, good to see you. So tell us more about what's happening at the court today. What's this hearing about?
Well, it's a very important hearing. As you said, you can hear some protesters here in support of the court. Behind me, there are not so many yet, but we're expecting more during the day. There was also a large demonstration last night here in front of the Supreme Court. So the importance here, you can see it there, the whole panel, 15 justices that will be sitting here in this hearing. They will be hearing petitions that were filed by civil rights groups, also by the opposition, by individual groups, after the far-right religious government passed the amendment to basic law that basically says that it removes the ability of the Supreme Court to, and other courts also, I have to say, to review government decisions when they would be deemed unreasonable. So we will be seeing the 15 justices here. They will basically debate whether they will limit or not their own authority. But I also have to say, until now in Israel, the High Court of Justice has never nullified an amendment or a basic law. So we will have to see what the judges here will decide.
Now, Tanya, these judicial reforms have divided Israeli society and have sparked months of protests. We're seeing a protest take place just behind you there. Why are they so controversial?
Well, that's right. I mean, they have torn the country apart, you could say. We have here seen protests for the past 9 months from the opponents of the controversial judicial overhaul. They've been in the streets every Saturday, but sometimes also several times a week. And they are basically saying that this will take the ability of the court to review government decisions. It will basically change the democratic character of Israel. The supporters here saying of the government's reforms, they're saying basically the courts in Israel, and especially the Supreme Court, has too much power. They always thought it's too liberal and too left, and they want to see the court's powers here diminished.
Tanya, is this hearing likely to change anything? And do we have any idea of when the Supreme Court is going to reach a decision?
Well, this could take some time. I talked to some experts. They're saying, it could take some weeks, but they're hoping to get some idea what the judges, there are 15 judges sitting there, what they will be thinking over the course of the hearing. This will be broadcast live, so to get some kind of hint where they're going at. As I said, until now, the High Court of Justice has never nullified a basic law or an amendment to it. We're also going here into a period of the Jewish high holidays, and also the Knesset will only start by mid-October, so it could take some time. Now, what they will decide, we have to see. It all depends, also a lot of experts saying, how the government will then respond to it, whether this country will go into a constitutional crisis or not.
Thanks, Tanya. DW's Tanya Kramer at the Israeli Supreme Court in Jerusalem.